Hello, good morning. If you're in, I guess if you're in the States, good morning, everyone. Hello. Hi, Headspace. All right, let me. Just waiting for Andy. Hi.
Hey Jen, how you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm well. First of all, I'm so sorry about last time. I
That's
was
okay.
sat I was sat here watching you
Oh,
and I couldn't communicate with
do
you in any
anything.
way. So
It's a good lesson in meditation, I suppose, to
it is.
remain calm under the pressure.
I've been
So,
in that situation many times, waiting for people to join, and it's kind of like, okay, let's see
yeah.
where this goes. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm so glad that you're here. My family they're huge fans. We've been geeking out every day. My kids are going, "When do you talk to Andy? When are you talking to
Yeah,
Andy?"
amazing. How
Last
old are they, Jen?
they are 9 is my oldest, Thomas, and then 7 is Shep. He's my middle, and then my daughter's 4. And we
Okay,
listen to Headspace every night on our way to school, all
amazing.
the ups and downs. So
Yeah.
it's definitely a staple in our house, and it was the introduction to meditation for my children, which
Yeah.
was very profound for us, and in um, such a simple, beautiful way. And I'm very grateful for that experience and those skill sets. So
Yeah.
thank you for that. And I would love to learn more about your journey and share a little bit about
Sure.
your journey and to get here to Headspace. I know that you're a former Buddhist monk, so I'm not sure what that
Yeah,
means to be a former Buddhist monk, but I'd
I'll
love to.
explain. I'll explain as we go. I think it's actually the easiest way to think. Most people, I think of if you become a monk or a nun, it's something that you do for life. And I think within some religious schools and some traditions, that is the case. Certainly within the Buddhist schools that I trained in, when you go there, it's a bit like going to university, and you can commit for 1 year, for 3 years, for 5 years, or for life. And when you get to the end of like your say 3 years, which might be your kind of like your bachelor's degree, they kind of ask you, would you want to continue and make another commitment, or do you want to leave, or do you want to take a commitment for life? So it's more like that. So I sort of finished my commitment with the monastery, and then made the decision to try and make meditation a bit more accessible outside of that tradition.
That's fantastic. And I, I was fairly new to meditation when I found your app, which is so magical and was so helpful. And then I really loved getting into the Netflix series as well, and
Oh,
I
thank you.
loved that transition. Can you tell anything about that?
Yeah, I mean a lot of folks have asked him. They've kind of said, "Isn't it a bit weird, kind of serving up meditation on TV?" But then 10 years ago, a lot of people said, "Isn't it a bit weird serving up meditation on a phone?"
Sure.
And I just think actually the medium is maybe not so important. I actually think it can be really helpful. There was a time, if I think back 15, 20 years ago, if you wanted to learn meditation, you had to go and find a meditation center. You had to find a community that you're comfortable with. It was a very public kind of thing. You had to commute there. You had to commute back. It was kind of like a real thing. And I think the idea of being able to meditate now, kind of wherever you are, if you're commuting to work or at home when you kind of have a spare 10 minutes or whatever, that's a big shift. And then, so Rich and I, even when we started Headspace, we kind of were thinking about sort of TV as well as an app. And I think what I like about it is that it brings people together. So there's that sense of community again. So you can be in your living room with your family or with your flatmates, housemates, whatever it might be, and actually kind of sharing the experience together. And I feel like it's also another way that, I don't know how you found it, if you've ever tried to recommend an app to a friend or a family member. It's not always that straightforward. You can't, oh yeah, it's that app, and you have to go and like download it and register it, and they may not go through all those steps. This is really easy. It's like, hey, next time you're on Netflix, check out Headspace. And it's just, I feel like it's introducing meditation to like a second or a third wave of people.
No, it's brilliant. And I will
Yeah.
say I use it working out. I was working out earlier today, and you can meditate and work out, which
You
I
really
do
can.
often.
You really can. Yeah.
it's really fantastic, and I will say the graphics as well are really hypnotic and engaging for everyone. My children, I was shocked at how still they sat as they
Is that right?
watched all the animations go by and then got that message through.
Yeah.
Especially, we really we were listening to the anger one the other day, which was so
Yeah.
helpful to show compassion for the other
Yeah.
person, and it was a big game changer um, for
We
us.
Can I ask you something, Jen? When you mentioned that all your kids are meditate, was that something that you were consciously thinking of as parents, kind of when you had children or as they were growing up, or was it more just in the melee and the chaos of parenting? It was like, oh my God, we really need something. Kind of what can we try? I'm just intrigued, kind of how it started.
Yeah, well, I started, like you said, get in the car, drive. In the beginning, it was in LA, so it would be like, get your stuff on, and it would be an hour, pomp and circumstance to get there, and you're all frazzled, and you sit, and then you
Yeah,
meditate, and then you have to go back in that journey. And so when I discovered the app, I feel like it was right around when we had kids, and I didn't
yeah,
put two and two together until I started seeing you had the children's section, and so I
yeah,
started listening to it when it wasn't that I can't wait to give meditation to my kids. It was more that I stumbled upon it, saw that you had a children's section, and it was really resonating because there were so many different um, sort of verticals or
yeah,
topics.
yeah,
And we were really struggling with the emotions and dealing with the
yeah,
big emotions and how to give our kids tools for that. And
yeah.
especially when they're tied down in a car, strapped in.
I
So
hear
that
you. I hear you. Yeah,
that was yeah. So it was certainly something that we did as Jared and I did,
yeah,
and I feel that the app has definitely progressed our journey because it's made it
yeah.
more convenient for
So
us.
yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
That's
so
great.
it's fantastic. What is your favorite session? Do you have one?
Um, I mean, there were a couple that were, I guess, really like meaningful and felt very personal, kind
Hmm.
of to me. So a big push for becoming a monk in the first place was going through a period of grief where I sort of lost some friends and family members, and at quite a young age. And that got me asking a lot of questions about, where was I going to find purpose and meaning in my own life. So I think, so sitting down and doing sort of the grief pack, for example, that felt particularly kind of meaningful to me. And I know from the letters and emails we've had kind of coming from folks, it's been a huge support for people in really challenging times. I'm not just going to focus on the sort of dark and heavy stuff, but like that's kind of life as well, right? Is just that's the reality for most of us, is that we deal with these things. And equally, I went through a period of cancer, and I really I feel very fortunate having gone through that, and not only because it taught me a lot about my own mind, again, but it allowed me to sort of connect with other people who are going through sort of chronic illness. So recording the cancer pack as well, I would say was yeah, like really, it felt meaningful and very personal. And I when I sit in the studio and record, I I don't I don't have the app like in mind. I'm just talking to you. It's just
Yeah.
me and you, and that's kind of, so it feels like a really kind of very personal. Although I don't know necessarily who you are, who's listening. Like, it feels like a really deeply personal relationship. So those are a couple of my favorite packs. My favorite technique is probably there's two. There's loving kindness and skillful compassion. And for me, I think all the focus on meditation in the West is so often about attention and focus and productivity and how can we be better and how can we improve ourselves. And that's all fine. I think the real heart of meditation is how can we be kinder to ourselves? How can we be less judgmental, less critical, more loving? And as a consequence, how can we be kinder to other people? Less judgmental, less critical, more loving. And when we do that, I think we feel better, the people around us feel better, and we live in a kinder, more peaceful society.
Yeah, I so agree. You couldn't have said it better. And I, for me, it starts with my kids. So if I can
Yeah,
model that behavior especially in those difficult moments, then watching them have those moments of kindness and compassion with themselves is
Yeah.
really cool. I love that you have that.
And if there's any, I don't know how you are, Jen. Most parents that I know are really, really hard on themselves. And
All the time.
yeah, and so I just want to be really, really, for anyone who is a parent and sort of practicing meditation and they think, oh, this meditation's not working, I still lose my head sometimes and I still maybe like shout at kids or like, just know that that's normal. Like meditation is not turning into a robot. It's not becoming kind of completely emotionless and without any react. Like we're human beings. Like we're all working it out as we go. But just giving yourself that bandwidth as well, kind of so that it doesn't feel like meditation is this pressure that we put on ourselves that we've got to get it right. It's actually just an additional support so that maybe just sometimes we don't react in that habitual way and we give ourselves a bit more space to respond in a kinder, sort of more skillful way.
Oh, absolutely. I know that for me, I was saying that I just watched the anger
Yeah.
meditation on Netflix, and for me, I struggle a lot with anger and what to do with it, and I feel I grew up like repressing it and not knowing how to express when I'm angry, and so you know the meditation, and I don't think I'm ruining it, but just to show compassion for the
Yeah.
other person, and it felt like such a weight had been lifted, and so that's been really, really helpful for me and for my children. I feel like a kid,
Yeah.
I'm learning alongside them.
Yeah.
But do you have a favorite Netflix? Um,
Favorite Netflix episode? Probably the one that, um, I mean, anger would be up there. It would definitely be up there, I think. I like the final kind of episode as well, which is very much about sort of this idea of like most of us live our lives in with an idea perhaps that we're limited by the way we grew up, the thinking we have about ourselves, perhaps the thinking other people project upon us. It might be the work that we do, the identity that we have of ourselves. And I think with meditation, it introduces this idea that actually our mind is limitless and really quite expansive. And whilst we may not necessarily always have the conditions that we would like immediately in our physical world, actually in our mind, we have everything we need. And that for me is I remember kind of when I first heard that, I didn't actually believe it, but when I first heard it, that was a really kind of liberating idea that actually what we're looking for is already here. And it's actually in our mind, the constant striving, looking for things outside of ourselves in the belief they're going to make us happy. Like that creates so much noise that we miss the fact that what we're looking for is already here. So just kind of getting in touch with that as a way of living life and getting a sense of just how expansive the mind can be, I feel not only brings a great sense of peace, but it also brings a great sense of possibility. And maybe, just maybe, we're willing to step outside of those limits we've put on ourselves or other people have put on us and try something kind of new and different. And that can be that can be a really liberating thing for people, I think.
oh yeah, it is for me for sure. It's yeah, very liberating is the perfect word for it. And what would you say uh, as far as the episode, or as far as the Netflix series is concerned and the app?
Hmm.
How do you feel? How would you explain to someone how they differ, or why choose one over the other? Or
Yeah, it's a good question. The I think Netflix is a great introduction. It's going to introduce you to different types of techniques. It's going to give some context to meditation as well, and it's very different from what a lot of people kind of think. I think a lot of people might associate it with, as I say, kind of maybe like a religious mysticism or something like that, and then they show up to Netflix like, oh, it's going to help me sleep better. Oh, it's
yeah,
going to help me feel less stressed. Kind of, oh, and I'm not going to be so angry with my kids. Like, so there's a very kind of practical, hopefully kind of sort of cutting through preconceptions, misconceptions. I think the app will take you on a journey. So Netflix can kind of, like I say, it's a great introduction, but at some point, so what's the journey that you're going to go on day to day? Because you're probably not going to watch that like day in, day out forever. You kind of want a journey that you can go on. And I know so many people who have, and they send me their screenshots, their run streaks, who've sat for like every single day for the last 5, 6, 7, even 8 years. And for me, that's the journey that the app can deliver. It can give you a sort of, this stable awareness, compassion, however you like to kind of think about it, from day to day, week to week, and year to year. That's the main difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I'm just thinking of that as a journey. I think I think that's so relatable, because I feel as I've listened to the app, I've grown and my meditation has grown.
Mm.
And then when I stop for a little bit, but I get back into it, and it's like a workout in a heady, or it's not spiritual. I mean, it is spiritual, but just in a wellness all
Yeah.
around sort of way. How did you come to the name Headspace?
So, Sarah, it was kind of serendipity. Rich and Usher, Rich is my co-founder, is my like, very good friend as well. He's my best mate. But we when we got together and started kind of working on Headspace, we spent about a year prior to launching it, kind of trying to think about how we wanted it to appear in the world. And we really wanted to kind of move away from, I feel like the 1980s. I mean, I love the 1980s, especially when it comes to music. But the
Me
1980s,
too.
especially within the world of kind of self-help and everything, it had a very particular kind of feel. It was very person-centric. There was a lot. It was a lot of kind of improve yourself, better yourself, and we were like, okay, well, we want to really kind of move away from that, and it was more about coming back to the essence and the quality of how you kind of feel. And we were in the car together, driving down the motorway in England, and down to Rich's dad's house, actually, to try and persuade him to invest in us. And Rich said, I feel like it needs to be something kind of like quite concrete and quite solid, like tangible, that people can actually sort of grasp. He said, like the head, how am I? And I said, yeah, but it should feel kind of more than that. It's got to be more than the body. It's got to feel like, spacious. And we both looked at each other at the same time and went, Headspace. And that was it. And it stuck. And it stuck. And thankfully, it's worked out okay for us.
I mean, it's like meditation. It's just so simple at its core.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's perfectly.
Yeah.
Um, Sorry, I'm getting asked some questions every time. Oh, what is this one? Someone asked, which goes true for me as well. Every time I try and meditate, my mind races. Is that okay? And am I doing it right? Because I know for me that I will sit there sometimes and like, okay, even today earlier when I was watching and I'm thinking like about being in this calming space and who I'm supposed to be, like focus on who I'm appreciating. Like,
yeah.
how do you,
So
is that normal?
the good news is it's absolutely normal. It's nothing to worry about. You're not doing anything wrong. And for me, that was the biggest, people say, kind of, what did I get from the monastery and those years of meditation? There's so many different things, but like the biggest thing kind of in terms of actually the technique itself was realizing that it's not about stopping thoughts, that it's not about clearing the mind. And that is such a persistent idea, by the way. Even once we've heard it from someone else, it won't just stop there. Like we will still try and resist thoughts because that's just what we do.
Yeah.
But that is not what meditation is, just to be absolutely clear. So just because we sit down and close our eyes and we call it meditation doesn't mean that thoughts are going to stop arising in the mind. So think of meditation rather than trying to stop thoughts or resist thoughts or clearing the mind. Instead, more about kind of stepping back and being able to witness thoughts coming and going. And the more you can do that without chasing after them, getting involved in them, without resisting them or fearing them, then that's a really interesting place to sit. Because then there's no suppression of thought. There's no effort involved because you're not resisting, you're not chasing, you're just watching. And so that very sort of passive kind of observing brings a whole new kind of quality of mind. And more than that, then not only, because if you're only chasing like a calm, quiet mind, that's really difficult in everyday life. What are you going to do in the middle of an argument with your partner or a crazy time with your kids or your boss at work or whatever? You can't just say, excuse me, can we stop while I just meditate and calm my thoughts? Hey, no one's going to do that.
It would be nice, though.
It would be nice, of course. But I feel like in that moment, like that is the moment that we want to bring that quality of observing the mind. And rather than kind of running away from the thoughts, be able to witness thoughts, allow them to come and go, and just be present with them. That, I think, is the real sort of power of meditation.
I love that analogy I think you used in Netflix with the cars and the traffic and watching cars go
Yeah.
by. I thought that was a great one.
Yeah, I don't mind sort of sharing that. It was one that my teacher shared with me. I thought it was quite ironic that it was a Tibetan teacher who had grown up in an area without any roads or cars. But yeah, he talked about it in terms of, you know, the cars on the road are like the thoughts in the mind, you know, and our job is to sit on the side of the road and observe the traffic. And to begin with, because we're so used to kind of jumping and getting involved in our thoughts, it's like seeing a shiny bright car go past. And before we even realize what we're doing, we're out in the road and we're chasing after it and we're kind of getting involved in it. And it might be 5 minutes down the road until we realize, oh, I'm thinking. And we come back to the breath again. And in the same way, sometimes we see big, scary kind of trucks coming down the road. They're the thoughts that maybe it's anger or sadness or anxiety, but thoughts and emotions that we don't want to experience or identify with. And we tend to kind of get involved in those in the same way. And then at some point we realize, actually, this is exhausting, running around in traffic on the road. What am I doing? And we just step back and we then just watch the traffic go by and we realize, oh, there's nothing to do. And the more we do that, the more the traffic starts to subside. And sure, maybe some days we experience a very quiet, clear mind, but it doesn't really matter either way, is the truth.
Well, and is there somewhere specifically then also that you recommend when meditating?
So the most important thing is that you're not going to be physically interrupted. Don't worry too much if there's some kind of like noise and stuff around you.
Sorry for the, I don't know if you can hear someone's leaf blowing, I think, at my neighbor's house, so I apologize.
Perfect example, right? I think, like, I know folks who maybe they sit down to meditate and then, I don't know, maybe like there's a noise from the neighbor's kind of apartment or something like that, and they'll stop meditating and kind of say, oh, I can't, this is no good, I can't do it. So that's a perfect example, actually. You could note it and kind of go, oh, okay, that's listening, come back to the breath again. Sure, your mind's going to go back there again. When you realize you're getting caught up in that sort of activity of listening, again, you just note it, okay, listening, come back to the breath again. And so the truth is we can meditate anywhere. You know, I know people who meditate on the train and on the bus, kind of going into work in the back of an Uber. I think it's nice to have if you are fortunate enough to have a place, not a room, just a corner of a room that you can set up that feels a bit special, that feels a bit different, that you only use for meditation. Maybe it's sitting on the ground, maybe it's sitting on a chair, but to dedicate a small space where you can sit. I don't know, personally, I like that idea and I've always found it really beneficial.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. Yeah, I even in the car, like in my car, just having, I think what you're saying, the physical space and not the sounds are fine. And that's funny because I find that in the car, that is when I do my best meditation work.
Yeah.
Ironically.
Yeah.
Would you lead us in a meditation?
I'd be happy to. I'd be very happy to. Sure thing. How long would you like to meditate for, Jane?
It depends how much time you have.
I mean, so I'm going to assume that maybe kind of most folks tuning in, some will have done some won't have done some. So let's keep it sort of within the sort of 5 minutes and under. So around there. And before we start, I'm just going to give 3 really simple tips. And they may sound very basic. Trust me, even if you've been, I know people who've been meditating for 20 years who still have to remind themselves of these 3 things. Number 1, I said it already, but it's not about stopping thoughts. Don't worry if your mind thinks, allow thoughts to come and go. It's really important. Second one, doesn't require any effort. We are so used to, I mean, we are just I don't know about a nation, but a world of kind of overachievers, always constantly trying to strive for better and more and everything else. You can't, in the same way you can't make sleep kind of happen, you can't force sleep to happen, you can't make love happen, you can't force love to happen, you can't make meditation happen, you can't like make relaxation happen. So although it sounds counterintuitive, when you sit down, rather than trying to do something, rather than trying to make something happen, just see this as the one opportunity in your day when there is nothing to do, No responsibility, nobody's judging you, nobody's grading you, there's nothing. So don't worry if thoughts continue, no effort required. And then the final one is, as much as possible, just allow the mind to be itself. Most of us go into meditation thinking that we have to achieve some kind of state of mind. And if we don't achieve that, then we're doing something wrong. That's really tricky, because then we're thinking about what we want to achieve rather than simply meditating. So let go of any preconceived notion of what meditation is and simply be comfortable resting the mind as it is, just watching the thoughts go by. So those three things. So we're going to start with our eyes open. So wherever you're sat, at home or at work or right now, just sit with a very sort of soft focus. So we're going to actually start with the eyes open. I've got a plant attacking me on the left side here, so ignore that. But a very soft focus. So it's almost as though you can see everything in front of you and around you, but you can't see any one thing clearly. And just maintaining that soft focus. Just take a couple of big, deep breaths. And we're going to breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth. So just for these first couple of breaths, breathing in through the nose. And this time as you breathe out, just gently closing the eyes and just allowing the weight of your body to sink down into the seat beneath you. So just feeling the weight of the body press down, that feeling of the feet on the floor, and the weight of the hands and the arms just resting in their legs. And as you sit there, before you do anything else, just take a moment just to notice how the body feels right now. So often we're not really aware. So just noticing any sense of heaviness in the body, sense of lightness. Does the body feel very still? Does it feel busy, agitated? Again, without any judgment, just noticing how the body feels. And as you become more aware of those sensations, in the same way, just noticing how the breath feels as well. So for some people, they feel the rise and the fall of the breath in the chest. For others, it's in the diaphragm. For some, it's the stomach. If you can't feel that rising and falling movement in the body, you can just gently place your hand on your stomach and just be reassured by that rising and falling movement. So at this stage, you don't have to breathe in any special way at all. Just allow the body to breathe naturally. Our only job is to stay with this rising and falling movement. Of course, the mind is going to wander off at times. As soon as you see the mind wander, just acknowledging it. Okay, it's thinking. And then gently coming back to the breath again. So we'll just stay here with the breath for the next 30 seconds or so. Remember, natural for the mind to wander. Just allow thoughts to come and go. No effort required. Just noticing when the mind's wandered off and gently coming back to the breath. And just know this is as you Just take a moment to appreciate that feeling, perhaps that stillness of body, of mind. Just know this is a place you can come back to at any time during the day, not just in your meditation. But the more familiar you become with this feeling, the easier it is to access throughout the day. And now though, just gently bringing the attention back to the body, just coming back to that feeling of weight, that feeling of contact pressing down. The feet on the floor, the hands, the arms, on the legs. And then whenever you're ready, you can just gently open the eyes again. Okay.
That felt so good. I'm so appreciative that you're here and sharing this with so many people, and you're a familiar friend in our home, a familiar voice, and I so appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. Honestly, kind of, for me, that's why I do it. It's like, it's an interesting kind of thing, how we all identify with ourselves and how we think of ourselves. And, very often, I don't know if this ever happens to you, but very often I'll be introduced as, there's this guy's a meditation teacher or kind of, expert. All these like kind of, they're just words, And for me, I'm a student. I will always be a student of mindfulness. But the thing I want to be most for people, whether they're using the app or they're watching the show or reading the book or anything else, is just to be a trusted friend along the way. And for me, that's where the magic kind of happens. For me, when I think about my own journey, I went to the Himalayas and I trained with incredible kind of teachers from different traditions and everything else. But actually, it was meeting one individual who'd been on that journey and who became a good friend and who was able to, I don't know, I felt he spoke my language, and I felt that we were on the journey together, and he became my trusted friend, and so for me, that's the best thing, kind of, if it feels like kind of there's a friend in the house who's kind of walking with you along the way, that's the perfect result.
Well, thank you. You've clearly accomplished that with the Netflix series. If people haven't seen it, please go watch it. It's fantastic. The app. You are a familiar friend, and I'm so grateful that you are able to take your knowledge and your wisdom and your journey of, your apprenticeship throughout this space and impart it and hold our hands through it and guide us through it. So I'm
just a pleasure.
So grateful. Thank you again.
It's a pleasure. And thanks so much for having me on, Dana. It's been a lovely conversation. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Cool. And have a lovely day. Great greetings from Portugal, from the other side of the pond.
Oh, how fun. Have fun.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Beautiful. Yeah. Well, enjoy.
Thank you very much. Have a good day. Say hi to LA for me.
I will. I'm in Austin, but I will do both.
And Austin. Okay.
Thank you again.
See you. No worries. Take care.
You too. Bye. Bye.